If you own a Quest 3 and you've ever wondered whether it's tracking your eyes to make games run better, you're not alone, and the honest answer is no, it isn't. Quest 3, which launched in late 2023, shipped with 0 eye-tracking sensors. The confusion mostly comes from Meta's own lineup. Quest Pro, released back in 2022, does have real eye tracking, and so do several newer competing headsets, so people assume the whole Quest line got the upgrade. It didn't. Quest 3 and the cheaper Quest 3S both rely on a completely different, older trick called fixed foveated rendering. And it's easy to mix the two up because they're solving the same problem in very different ways. One watches where your eyes actually point. The other just guesses using math that you're probably looking at the middle of the screen. That distinction sounds small. It actually decides how sharp your games look in your peripheral vision, and why some titles run smoother on Quest 3 than you'd expect from its hardware. Here's what's actually happening inside your headset every time you boot up a game. Fixed foveated rendering, or FFR, works off one assumption. Your eyes are almost always pointed toward the center of the lens, because that's where headset optics are sharpest anyway. So Quest 3 renders the middle of every frame at full resolution, and quietly drops the resolution toward the edges where your peripheral vision is naturally worse at picking up detail. Your GPU never has to fully render pixels you're statistically unlikely to be staring at, which frees up processing power for the parts of the image that matter. The fixed part of the name is the whole story. The high-resolution zone never moves. It's locked to the center of the frame no matter where your eyeball actually goes. Look hard to the side without turning your head, which barely anyone does in VR anyway, and you're looking at the lower resolution zone. Meta's own developer documentation confirms this is a static zone, not a tracked one. It's a rendering shortcut, not an eye sensor, and it's been part of the Quest software stack since long before Quest 3 existed. It's one of the reasons a standalone headset with mobile-grade hardware can still push convincing VR frame rates without a cable to a gaming PC. Eye-tracked foveated rendering, or ETFR, is the real version of what people assume Quest 3 is doing. It needs actual eye-tracking sensors inside the headset, cameras aimed at your eyes, and on Meta's own hardware. That currently means Quest Pro, and only Quest Pro. Quest Pro's eye tracking runs with roughly 50 milliseconds of end-to-end latency, and its display tops out at a 90 Hz refresh rate, numbers straight from Meta's own developer documentation. Because it knows exactly where you're looking, moment to moment, it can shrink the high-resolution zone down to genuinely follow your gaze anywhere on the lens, not just sit frozen in the center. That means more of the frame can run at reduced resolution without you noticing. Since the sharp zone is always wherever your eyes happen to be pointed, it's a meaningfully bigger performance win than fixed foveated rendering, which is exactly why Meta reserved it for its higher-end, more expensive headset instead of building it into Quest 3. The trade-off was cost. Eye-tracking cameras and the processing to read them add hardware. Quest 3 was never priced to include. Quest 3 launched at a price built for mainstream buyers, not headset enthusiasts. And eye-tracking hardware adds real cost to a bill of materials Meta was trying to keep low. Fixed foveated rendering costs nothing extra to build in, since it's pure software math running on hardware Quest 3 already has. Eye tracking means physical infrared cameras pointed at each eye, plus the processing overhead to read them accurately in real time. For a headset aimed at the widest possible audience, that math didn't pencil out. It's the same logic behind plenty of consumer tech decisions. The cheaper, less precise version ships to everyone, and the sensor-heavy, more accurate version stays reserved for the premium tier. Quest 3S, the even more budget-focused version of Quest 3 released in 2024, follows the identical pattern for the identical reason. Neither one needed to match Quest Pro's approach to hit its price target, and Meta didn't build it in. None of this changes what you see when you're actually playing, since fixed foveated rendering has been quietly running under almost every Quest 3 game since launch. And most players never notice the resolution drop at the edges because peripheral vision isn't built to catch it anyway. Where it does matter is performance headroom. Games with busy scenes, lots of enemies, particle effects, or dense environments benefit from every bit of GPU budget FFR frees up, which is part of why a mobile chipset can still run convincing VR without melting. It also explains a detail some players notice without knowing why. Deliberately roll your eyes hard to the side while keeping your head still, and textures at the far edge of your vision look softer. That's not a bug or a graphics glitch, that's fixed foveated rendering doing exactly what it's built to do. Understanding the difference matters more right now than it used to, because competing headsets are increasingly shipping eye tracking as a selling point. And it's worth knowing which performance features you're actually comparing before assuming Quest 3 has caught up. That's especially true for anyone comparing spec sheets before buying, since a bullet point that just says Foveated rendering can mean two very different things depending on the headset. This comparison is about to get more relevant, not less. As of June 2026, reporting on Valve's upcoming Steam Frame headset has specifically framed it as a direct target at Quest 3, built with double the RAM and its own take on Foveated streaming for PC-tethered play. Whenever a new headset enters the standalone VR conversation, the eye tracking question comes up immediately, because it's become a genuine dividing line between headset tiers rather than a niche feature. That makes this a good moment to actually know what your own headset does and doesn't have, instead of assuming based on marketing you've half read. Quest 3 remains fixed Foveated rendering only. No eye sensors, no gaze-based zone, saying just a smart, static guess about where your attention probably is. If a future software update or a Quest 4 changes that, it'll be a genuine hardware shift worth covering here, not a quiet firmware patch. For now, the honest technical answer is simple. Even if the marketing language around every new headset launch tends to blur it. If someone asks you point blank, does Quest 3 track your eyes? The answer is no. It estimates instead. And that estimate is fixed Foveated rendering, a static, always centered resolution trick that's been doing quiet work under nearly every game you've played on the headset. Eye-tracked Foveated rendering, the version that actually follows your gaze, is a Quest Pro feature for now, tied directly to hardware. Quest doesn't have. It's a small distinction with a real effect on performance, and one worth knowing before you compare Quest 3 against whatever headset launches next. Tomorrow, we're looking at a specific game worth your time on the Quest 3 side of the channel. So if this kind of straight answer breakdown is useful, subscribing means you won't miss it. Which headset feature do you actually wish Quest 3 had?